You got a cocktail. Is that a cocktail?
No, it's just water with lemon.
I just got soda water, club soda.
Listen, I instituted a bunch of years ago that I don't drink during the week because I love to drink and I could drink all the time. And then everyone's like, oh, well, COVID, I might as well have a cocktail. I'm like, I'm not going down that dark road because I will be drunk all the time. So my alcohol consumption is between Friday and Sunday when I feel it's appropriate.
Constantly, but only Friday to Sunday.
Softly buzzed from Friday at 4:45 all the way to Sunday at dinner.
This segment here is called Who the Fuck Is? So we are going to venture through the world of Andrew Pike and find out who the fuck is Andrew Wilma Pike.
Who the fuck is that?
Do you remember that?
Of course I remember that, but I haven't heard it in years.
I have been, it has been, I say it to myself for the past 2 days because I knew we were doing this. I've been like, I can't wait to call him Wilma.
Oh my God, I love that you brought that up. That was such a magical time for so many reasons.
Oh my God, we're going to get into that. And part of, I want to also point out to you is our connection wasn't for very long. It was relatively short-lived, but it was really impactful. And I want you to know that, like, it really meant a lot. It was a really fun fucking time back then. It was so great. And I have a lot of really good memories from that. And I want you to know that you're a part of that.
I really appreciate that. And I feel the same. It was an incredible time for all of us. It was like a magical moment that we kind of bonded together over something that was so fantastic and yet so challenging for so many reasons, but it was left an indelible mark on my heart and my soul, and we came out as friends, Cheryl and Sarah and Tara and Olivia. And I mean, it's just, still connected to all of you today in some way, even if it's just on, social media or whatever, but it was such an incredible time. I'm so glad to have those memories. It was really special.
We're going to get to that. I want to start with, where did you grow up? Where are you from? You're East Coast, I think, I'm imagining, right? With that accent.
And it's so funny because I don't hear it, but
right.
After a couple of drinks and two other Newfoundlanders in the room, you can hear it. I was born in Cape Breton, actually, in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
But we moved when I was about 3 years old to Newfoundland. And so all my formative years were spent in Newfoundland. So if anyone asks, I tell them I'm a Newfoundlander. I mean, it makes sense. I was there till I was probably 18. And then but it's so funny because I grew up in the city and my parents were pretty adamant that I didn't have a really thick East Coast accent.
Really?
Yeah, and I've been gone for so long and lived away. There are certain words, like I still can't say bottle. Like
what?
Bottle?
Like a bottle?
Bottle.
Oh.
Yeah, because I say bottle. It's about a bottle of pop. And and I really, when I try to say it, it sounds completely affected. Can you hand me that bottle? Like, it's just weird. Anyway, so I avoid using it as much as possible. But when my parents would come and visit, all my friends are like, make them say something. I'm like, ask them a question. Like, just because apparently their accent is quite thick, but I can't hear it at all. Like, I literally cannot hear it. But when I go back to Newfoundland, and I am talking to other people, I'm like, my God, their accents are so thick.
Dropping cheese on the pogo stick. No, you can't go, but where you going with what?
Really? So you can hear it in other people in Newfoundland, but not in your parents. That's interesting. I've always wondered that.
Yeah. And again, my parents don't have the really thick Newfoundland accent, but it tickles all of my Upper Ontarian friends when they hear it.
You don't either. It's like you said, it's just a few words here and there.
Car, bar.
Yeah, oh for sure.
Oh for sure. Yeah. Or the classic, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that an East Coast thing?
Oh, when you speak on the intake, yeah. Very East Coast.
That's awesome. And then what did your parents do?
My mother went to school and became a registered nurse because she grew up in a time where she went home during high school and said to her father, so this would have been when would that have been? The 50s? No, 60s. And she went home and she said, I want to be airline stewardess, because that was so glamorous.
Of course,
and her father said to her, that's one step above being a prostitute, so you can be a nurse or a teacher. So she became a nurse, and she nursed for a while, but she hated it and never wanted to do it. So she went me, and she never went back. And after I was born, she stayed home with me for many years. She went to work for the government, and that's where she ended up retiring, because we always made the joke, like, my mother was not a born nurse. She's a wonderful woman and she can take care of people, but she's not like that. My mother struggles to put on a Band-Aid. I'm like, what is happening? So, and my father had a career in medical sales. So not the good kind of medical sales that make Saturdays really fun. It was it was pharmaceutical equipment. And then he had a career there, and then he switched games and went into financial planning and did that until he retired. So they're both retired.
So they're still around, both of them?
Yes.
Okay. Does your mother still sleep by holding one of her nostrils open?
Oh my God, how do you remember that?
I have to tell you that was one of, if I had to think of any times that I've laughed the hardest, that's one of the times, is when you would tell that story, and I would make you repeat it over and over because it was just the funniest thing to me.
With the corner of the blanket.
Rubbing their nose with the corner, or their mouth with the corner of the blanket.
And with the industrial strength earmuffs on that had cut off socks on them, which was my father's solution to make them more comfortable. My mother basically has bat hearing, so she can hear a dog barking in like a neighboring province. And what's that? What's that now? John, I'm never going to sleep like that, John. So that was all part of the picture. So I would go in as a child and I'd knock on the door and I wouldn't get an answer. And I'd knock and I'd go around the corner and she'd be sitting there with these industrial strength earmuffs with her nose pulled to the side because she has a deviated septum, just like me, tickling her face with a blanket.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I'm telling you, I swear to you, I'm not even exaggerating. Some of the funniest times were on set, behind the scenes on Rooms That Rock. It was you telling the stories. It was just, my God. But I want to hear more of those, and we're going to talk about them. You don't have any siblings, do you? Are you an only child?
I'm an only child.
That's why you're good at storytelling then, I guess.
Entertaining myself and others.
Yeah, for sure. But growing up, were you always sort of designy? Like, was this something that was always there, looking back?
100%. I used to cobble together like large cardboard moving boxes, and then I'd go under like the crawl space and I'd pull out remnants of carpet or linoleum or things, and I'd make floors and I'd make little houses out of the wall, in and out, and try and make drapes and stuff out of old blankets. Yeah, I was always into that. But my first job, so I grew up mowing lawns in the summer, shoveling driveways in the winter.
Oh, shoveling driveways in Newfoundland must be oh my God, you guys get so much snow out there. That's crazy.
But I mean, I made a lot of money. I was not afraid of work because I loved shit. I wanted to have money to buy shit. That was the whole thing. And so I'm like, what do I got to do? Tell me what I got to do. So I was doing that for a long, long time. And then I started making jewelry in the basement. Gay.
No.
Super gay.
You were making jewelry?
I was making jewelry. So I used to love rocks and gemstones. And have you ever you've seen tumbled stones? You put them, so I used to do tumbled stones all the time. And then I started getting in the little, they call them findings, all the little metal pieces that put them all together. And I started making jewelry. And then it just became a side hustle for me all the way through junior high and high school. And at one point I had like 8 or 10 stores carrying my stuff in St. John's.
Come on, really? That's amazing. Wow.
bracelets, earrings, brooches, like tie clips, whatever. And then I would drive around on a Saturday and go to all the stores and find out what had sold and replace the stock and get my money and all that kind of stuff. Like it was great. I was entrepreneurial from a really, really young age.
Yeah, you were.
But I mean, I think one of my first jobs was one of the stores that I was selling my jewelry to was actually in Mallard's Cottage. And for anybody who knows anything about the East Coast, Mallard's Cottage is now an internationally recognized restaurant. It is built in Mallard's Cottage, which is supposed to be the oldest living wooden structure in North America.
Really?
I think that might be up for some debate.
But it's probably very close to it, if not one of them, at least.
Very,
right?
very close. And the time when I was there, it was an older lady named Peg Magnone, and she ran a little antique store, and I would go and sell her my jewelry. I'd go down on my bicycle at probably 12 or 13 years old and sell her my jewelry. And at one day, she's like, do you want to work here for the summer? And I was like, little gay kid in Newfoundland working in an antique store. I'm like, yes, absolutely. And so that was, I think, my first job, like my first actually going to somewhere to sit in a place and get paid.
I love that.
What was your first job?
I think my first job was like a busboy. Like I never even graduated from high school. The day I turned 16, adios, motherfuckers. I was gone. I did terrible at school. I hated it. I'm not dumb. I'm a very smart person, but I hated it. I was bored. I wasn't engaged. Like when I left high school, I only have 9 credits. You're supposed to leave by the time you're done, I think 30 or something. I don't remember what it is.
Wow.
So I turned 16 and I left and went to be a busboy in the restaurant. I worked in the hospitality restaurants for like, that was 16, probably for like 4 years or so. And then I DJ'd in a strip club for a while. So
I remember the strip club stories. They're coming back to me now. We'll save those for later in the
all right. All right. So what started your career then in design? Was that, did you go to school for it?
No, I didn't. I'm self-taught. So I actually remember sitting with, what do you call those people? The guidance counselor in high school. And I always did well in school, but I was completely disengaged and uninterested and, you know, didn't apply myself. Every report card I got for my entire life said the same thing. Like, Andrew's a very bright student. He doesn't apply himself and he enjoys socializing way too much. I'm like, in a nutshell.
Yep.
Right here. So I think I just needed to find my niche, but I remember sitting down, I was always involved in the arts and theater and drama school and all that kind of stuff. And the guidance counselor and I basically decided like I would be good in design and I was obviously excelling in theater. And I kind of
obviously.
And now, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready. But I just decided, I'm like, you know, there's kind of more of a shelf life on theater because you really need to kind of attack it when you're younger to have a crack at getting involved. And not that you can't get involved when you're older or anything, you know, like anything can happen, but the odds are better if you get in younger and if you want to sing and dance and act, like at least you can be ensemble and chorus. So I thought I can do design later. So I did. I had my first career was in music theater performance and I performed for I think 8 or 10 years. And ultimately I just decided I was really tired going from contract to contract, from gig to gig, not having any real stability, not being able to have a base.
Is this still in Newfoundland?
No, I had come here to go to Sheridan for school. So I started in university. I did a year in university at MUN in Newfoundland, but I was on the West Coast in Corner Brook at Grenfell College. That was in their acting program. Very quickly realized I have the ability to sing and dance, so I needed to maximize it. So Sheridan at the time was one of the best provinces, the best programs in the country. I think it's still very, very reputable. But I auditioned, I got accepted, and I always joke, I went in as an actor who could kind of sing and not dance, and I left as a singer who could kind of dance and not act. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but it all went sideways. But I did my 3 years there, and at that time, Germany was the third biggest theater capital in the world after London and New York. So I graduated and I moved to Germany, and I worked there for five years. And then I moved back to Canada, worked a little bit more. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And peace out.
So then what took you into design then?
I was sitting in my house, and this was when, so Terry, when did we do RTR? Like 2002, 3?
Probably.
Almost 20 years ago, right?
What did I have Bryce yet? My daughter?
Yep.
She was already born.
Yeah, how old is
So she was born in 99. So it was early 2000s then, probably.
Early 2000s, yeah. And so we all know, like, the late 90s, HGTV just took off, and it was like the hottest thing in the world.
Yep.
And so I always think that we were kind of the second generation of that wave, right? Because it started, well, our Canadian celebrities were Stephen and Chris, Jane Lockhart, Kimberly Seldon, Linda Reeves, Peter Felico,
Candace Olsen.
Candace Olsen, Jason Cass, right? That was the first wave.
Forgot about Jason, yeah.
Do you remember? And poor Jane had to stand on a box because he's like 6'7" or something, and Jane 5 foot fuck all. But right at that time, the early 2000s, they had an ad on TV on HGTV that said, you know, like, do you have great design style? I was like, check. Do you have an outgoing personality? I'm like, check, check. Are you ready to be HGTV Canada's next design superstar? And I was like, ding, 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 3 cherries.
I forgot about that, right.
And so I auditioned on that. A bunch of people, thousands of people from Canada applied. They narrowed it down to the top 10, which is where I met Cheryl.
Now, just for everybody watching, that was basically like a Project Runway or American Idol, but it was to get your own television show as the next HGTV star.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so we were top 10, met Cheryl. A couple days of whatever we had to do, they narrowed it down to the top 3. It was myself, Stacey McLennan, and another guy whose name I cannot unfortunately remember. Very nice guy. And then they crowned Stacey the winner. And I was called in by HGTV and said, you know, you obviously did very well in this competition, but it's just not the right time for you, but we'll find something for you. And very shortly after that, Stephen and Chris, who were the designer guys at that time, were offered a new series because they'd done 5 or 6 seasons of whatever they had, and they were doing the Design Rivals. And I was hired to be the ingenue on that show. And so I did that for a while, and then I was...
Is that how they worded it to you, or is that your own?
A little of column A, a little of column B.
Okay, Miss Ingenue. Love it.
No, I think my actual title on screen was the protege.
Right. It was actually. I remember that now. Yes.
But I prefer ingenue.
I know you did. All right.
So I did that, and then I was hauled off to do Rooms That Rock with Cheryl and Sarah. And the rest is history.
And that's so it's funny because my first television gig in design was Designer Superstar Challenge, but I didn't come on until I filmed Stacey's final episode. So I was working in a fabric store at the time. I was just doing sewing on the side. I was still working in the travel industry. I was not doing this as a full-time job. I was just like, meh. Part-time on the side, I worked at a fabric store, BB Bargoons, back in that day. They're not around anymore. And the person working on Designer Superstar Challenge, Stacy had already been picked as a winner. So they were going to give her one final episode to make it look like this was her chance to show how she would do it in her own show. Right. And they needed somebody to do all the sewing. And next thing you knew, I showed up on set and I was the guy in the room making all the curtains and pillows and stuff. That was the first time I was ever on television.
But who found you? Who found you to do that?
Mimi. So Mimi Pinot, and I don't think Stacy was with her at that time. It was just Mimi came into BB Bargoons to fabric shop for the episode.
Right.
I was helping her get fabric, and I said, if you need help with somebody sewing this stuff, like I heard, well, on camera, I've always wanted. Part of the reason why I learned how to sew was to try to get myself onto one of these bloody HGTV shows. And when I got wind of that, I was like, hey, if you, I'll do it for you. So that when they filmed it, it was the day after my birthday. So I showed up reeking of cigarettes and vodka, hung over like nothing. And they crammed me into a room that was maybe...
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I was in a room that was maybe 7 feet by 6 feet with a baby crib. So it was the nursery and a tiny little table, my sewing machine, and I had to sew all this stuff for them. But it was fun. I loved it. And then I think my next show was Rooms That Rock. So technically my first show was a show that you were on. And so was my next show. And actually I did do that other show, Take This House and Sell It. And that may have been right before Rooms That Rock, but they also ran simultaneously. I was doing both shows at the same time. So Designer Superstar Challenge was first. So you weren't even working in design. You were working to come to television, right?
I think...
Like me.
Yes, I think it was a perfect intersection. So this is how I tell this story, is that my goal was never to win Designer Superstar Challenge. It would have been lovely. My goal was to put myself in front of a group of people that could see me as a potential talent, right? And that's exactly what happened. So all of a sudden, you know, Design Rivals, Rooms That Rock, whatever else came out of it, that was fine. My career in TV had already started because I always believed there was a bit of a problem with the HGTV mandate, because it was kind of like, let's find a designer who can do a show. I'm like, that's one way to do it. Or you find a personality and stick a bunch of people behind the scenes who can actually do the design, because people don't want to watch a boring designer on TV. I don't care how good you are. Like, you either need to be like British deadpan dry humor boring, or really vivacious. And so I think they were, in my opinion, you know, they were trying to find these people that were designers. I'm like, no, just go for the personality. And ultimately, you see a lot of that now, because these shows are completely cast just to make good-looking couples or good-looking pairs or trios or whatever it is. And they have no, you know, cred in the industry. I was one of those people. I readily admit, I have no problem admitting that I'm self-taught. I've worked really hard to learn the things that I have, and I have a very successful interior design business doing this stuff. But I essentially made it work because I went to school for theater and performance. And you're looking for TV people? Right here. Oh, by the way, I also have a pretty decent sense of style, and I can put a room together. So done.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like I said, I didn't even finish high school. I've never done any other schooling. So I've never been to school for any sort of design, or everything I've ever done ever with my life, in any job, in any capacity. I just did it. I just learned how to do it and did it.
And you know what? I feel like there was a pivotal moment when I came to my parents and I said, I'm going to go to school for theater. And every parent's dream. Oh God. But I mean, I was always artistic, and my mother said to me, why don't you go to school for teaching first so that you have something to fall back on? And I literally said, I don't need something to fall back on, because it had never occurred to me that I wasn't going to succeed.
Right.
And I think for people like you and I, it's like, I may not have the training, I may not have the background, I may not have the advantages, but if I decide to do something, it's my be all and end all that it is going to happen. And I think we've applied ourselves. This is what I want, and I'm going for it. And I'm not saying that that wasn't without its foibles or its challenges or its problems.
Yeah.
But it was never something in my mind like, oh, well, the theater thing might not work out. If you approach life like that, nothing is going to work out.
Yeah, that's exactly the same path I took. And yeah, dude, challenges. I have gone home to my apartment so many times with eviction notices on the doors, no phone working, the hydro being cut off, eating Mr. Noodle ramen noodle packs because they were 4 for $1. That's all I would eat for months on end because it's all I had the money for. But dude, I loved what I was doing. I was doing what I wanted. I become that. If there's something I'm interested in, I want to do, I become hyper obsessed with it. And I will do nothing but learn how to do that. I will watch every single fucking video on YouTube and I'm going to master that.
Exactly.
And that's just the way I've always been. And thank goodness, I mean, eventually I got through a lot of that pain and heartache, but hopefully there won't be any more, Andrew.
Oh, there's going to be more. Don't you worry. I mean, did any of us think that we'd be sitting locked in our houses for a year trying to navigate this? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
But we are resilient people. I mean, that's the thing. That's the name of the game. You need to learn how to dodge and dive and reinvent and recreate and still stay true to yourself. I mean, the other part of it was, for me, I was thrilled with the opportunity to be on TV and still enjoy it to this day. But people think that like we're on TV and we're making $1 million. I mean, I can't explain to people. Like,
Canadian TV plus design TV.
Second off.
Like, yeah, you're almost paying them to be there because you still gotta buy your clothes, all by your, like it's yeah. There's no way in hell that I ever made a living from television, even when I was on Divine Design, because, you know, sure, I made a lot of money per episode, but I only worked 26 episodes a year.
And that's the thing. We were paid per episode, and that's great if you can film an episode in 3 days, but it takes 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so by the time you've been booked for 13 episodes times whatever it was, Cheryl and I were sharing KD and ramen noodles, and like we had there was no money to do anything. Yeah. We both had rent to pay. We both had food, like all that stuff. And again, part of it is also how we perceive all that stuff in the world. Oh, they're on TV. They must be famous. They must be making all of this money. And no, it really isn't that way. With social media and everything, it all looks great. I get to travel I used to get to travel all the time and do all these things. Most of it is paid by clients or by companies that are, using me on a design related adventure, something like that. And it all looks great to the outside world, but yeah, it was a struggle to get here, and it continues at times to be a struggle.
Do you find that the other side of it, I find being on television and having that, people won't reach out to get you to do work for them because they think you're going to be too expensive?
It seems to be it's one of two things. Either they think they can reach out to you and either for free or because you're on Marilyn and you're like, this is a great home makeover for $500 or whatever, and they're like, oh, I want you to come and do my living room for $500. I'm like, that's not actually what I do. Like, I do that on TV. Or they think that, yes, oh, you must be so expensive, and I'm like, granted, I make a very good living, and I'm not cheap, because at the end of the day, hiring a designer is a luxury. It's not an essential service. It's not a necessity. But, we are far less than some of our contemporaries that are making 2, 3, 5, 10 times what we're making.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So now, how did you get over? What happened between Rooms That Rock and Marilyn Denis? Marilyn Denis is talk show host. Is that what we call this? It's a
Daytime.
daytime talk show host where she talks about all kinds of news topics, home decor, fashion, anything that housewives want to know about.
And she's an icon. She's a Canadian
Oh,
icon. She really is.
yes.
She's been doing this for 35 years, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe, my God, I don't know, maybe a long time. She's been doing
Yeah.
it a long, long time. And she's a seasoned professional. And so there was a transition between networks, and she left a show, City Line, that she'd been on for over 20 years. And she went to another network, and they created a new show for her. And they put a casting call out. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm happy to apply for that. Like, that's an interesting gig to me. Because as you know, too, there's a difference being signed to a contract for a show as opposed to just doing episodic work where you drop in and out. Like, for me,
Right.
it's so much easier. I'm like, you know, I know exactly what it is. I go into the studio, I do my thing, it's done in a couple of hours, I'm out, as opposed to, oh, I have to do this entire episode and now we're delayed and there's a snowstorm and then this didn't come and you're like, this drags out. So I really, really like it. But
let me add to that for a second. It's even when we were talking about everybody thinks because you're on TV, you're rich. These episodical pop-in episodes you're talking about, like on Marilyn Denis and City Line, are unpaid. And you have to pay for anything you're showing up with on set to show on camera. You've arranged all that. You've purchased it all. You've borrowed it or whatever you've done. It's all on you. Every expense you have to pay for. You show up, do your thing, and you leave. You do not get paid to do that.
the difference is with our show anyway, is that you are unpaid until you're asked to sign a contract. And once you sign your contract, that means you've got a non-compete. You can't do other daytime. Like, you need to let them know what other appearances and what networks you're going to be on.
Right.
Then you do get paid minimally.
Right.
So it covers it does not cover your time, does not cover what I would be able to bill to clients, does not cover me paying my staff to source furniture, pick things up, get samples, put together mood boards. So, but it helps. So there's a nominal fee. But yes, it is days of work to do 7 minutes on a daytime talk show.
It's more about trying to get the clout and the street cred of what you do. And that's part of what I was saying. Sometimes that backfires because people won't contact you because they think you're too expensive, or like you had said, they think you're going to do it for $100.
It's a double-edged sword, because
Yeah.
the minute you're on TV, you're given credentials. People are like, they're on TV, they're obviously, you know, nailing it in their field, they know what they're talking about. And so it is, you get out there, and it's funny, I glibly throw out things all the time because it's just, my mouth works way faster than my brain. And then you get viewer feedback and, you know, Andrew said this, can that really be done? Or, you know, I never thought about, and you're like, God, people are actually listening. So you have to be really careful, because it's, you know, once it's out in the world, you cannot take that back. So I've learned to actually try and formulate my thoughts a little bit better on that kind of TV, because for a while too, our show was live to air. So there was no takesies backsies. I mean, unless you shit yourself and burst into flames, like, it was going on air.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done it a couple of times. Well, I also went to that casting call you were talking about, which was insane. It was like lining up for a concert, lineups and lineups surrounding the block and down this block and all up that street, all the way down Queen Street. Thousands of people showed up. So I went as well, and I got cast to be on there as the fabric person, as the sewing guy.
Oh my God.
And then they just never called. But until years and years and years later, I think the first thing I ever did was the Elton John episode, when Elton John came on, and they contacted me and asked if I could make a couple of Billy Elliot pillows. That's when he was here promoting Billy Elliot.
He was on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So we went, and they didn't tell me until the day before. And Elton John, like, I don't know if you know this, like, even on my Facebook page, there's pictures of me dressed as Elton John, like 1970s Elton John, by the way.
Yes.
80s and up, I'm not into at all. But even in grade 6, I did a book report on Elton John and went and did my book report in front of the class dressed as Elton John, and I lip synced with a pretend piano and to everybody your song.
Oh my God, amazing. I mean, so I got the email and I submitted it, and they're like, "Great, we're having an open casting call." I'm like, "I'm not going." I'm a total dick, but you know, it's one of those things where I could smell that it was a PR stunt. I'm like, they want the footage of thousands of people lined up down the street around the corner, and I'm like, I have enough credentials. I'm like, here's my sizzle reel, here's my whatever, like you can contact me. So I didn't go and I didn't get contacted. And then this is where the story takes an odd turn. In season 2, they realized that they were short talent across a bunch of categories, because I think there were probably a bunch of people like me, and they were also, which is smart, they were trying to find people who were unknown so they could claim them as their own. Like, I totally respect that and I get that.
Right.
But that's a challenge, because if you're like, we're going to bet on this unknown horse, that unknown horse may not pan out, right? So you and I come with years of experience and credentials, and we're comfortable on and off camera. We've got the chops to do what we do. And if you're worried about the fact that we were on X, Y, and Z before, well, that's fine. Good luck with Chachi, whoever, you know, that's another thing. But in season 2, they realized they didn't have talent. So they did another talent search for designers.
Right. But they did it on air.
They did it on air.
Right.
Over like 5 or 6 episodes. I really thought, from a TV perspective, it was well done in how they crafted that. So again, went out across the country. Somebody called me from my original application, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm happy to do this. What is it for? And they said, oh, we're doing a contest and we need you to submit, you know, an audition tape. I'm like, no, not doing it. And they were like, no, but we really want you to be part of this. I'm like, fine, I'm happy to come on and be on your show, but I'm not submitting a demo reel. And they're like, but you need to do, I'm like, no, Google my name and watch any one of the hundreds of fucking clips I've done, and then let me know if that works for you. I was moving. I had just split up with my partner. I was in no mood to pacify anybody.
Right.
And you know me, Terry, I'm a dick at the best of times. So when you rub me the wrong way, I'm like, no, not interested.
You are not a dick, but you're spiteful and vengeful if somebody fucks with you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you fuck with me, that's it. We're done and I'm through with you. That's Andrew Pike for sure.
Thank you. I like to think I have a fairly decent moral compass, but yeah, I don't suffer fools gladly, and don't fucking come for me, because I will come back. You've picked the wrong person to go toe to toe with. Yeah. But I was just not in the headspace to be doing it. I'm like, yes, let me pacify your bullshit. So they asked me to come in for a meeting, and I said, I'll come in for a meeting, that's fine. And then I got cast on this show. Turns out, here's what I learned after the fact. I found out they auditioned, they had thousands of people apply, but they only had half a dozen men. And so they couldn't do this design challenge with, I don't know, 5 women and 1 guy. Like, it just looks too stacked. So they found another guy, Jonathan, who's still a friend of mine to this day. And I was the other one that they had cast.
Right.
And the very first episode of that, I ended up in the bottom 2, because there were design challenges. And then the other design experts were kind of your judges. And so Ramsden was my judge on that episode. And he was like, you know, Andrew, I really expected more out of you. You have the most experience, and I just think this is the weakest product. And I was like, fuck you, my friend. Now, Ramsden and I are good friends now. Like, we've traveled together, like it's all good. Yeah. But I had this meltdown moment. I'm like, why have I said yes to a competition when I've already had my own national show? Like, this was a complete misstep on my part. I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. I previously mentioned moving, selling my house, broke up with my partner, a lot happening. It wasn't synapsing in my brain. but ultimately moved on through that competition and ended up winning it and becoming the next resident design expert.
I assumed, and I may have assumed it incorrectly, you may not even be able to tell me the truth, but that it was sort of, I don't want to say rigged, but it was predetermined that you were going to win. And
No.
the only reason I thought that, because I thought, what the hell is Andrew doing going on television, entering a contest that there's a chance, what if he doesn't win? And the embarrassment that follows that.
So the truth of the matter is it wasn't rigged as far as I know. And it was not predetermined that I was going to win. I had not thought it through enough to think, oh my God, what if I don't win? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Because I was just kind of thinking, it's like the HGTV thing. I don't care if I win. I just need to be seen because I know that they're going to use me after this. Like, there's no way they're not going to use me. So I could live through the embarrassment of having not won. But I hadn't honestly thought that far down the road.
But the difference was you were already on TV. You had already been on TV. You had already established something. You know, it'd be like, I mean, this is a bit more extreme, but let's say Project Runway started a new season and all of a sudden, and it was just regular people. And then there was Christian Dior all of a sudden running to be part of the contest and he lost.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, I would imagine you're as good as Christian Dior and you're as big as as much of an ingenue as Christian Dior is. But that's where I went with it. I was like, oh my God, I don't think because I had been on Divine Design at that point, and I don't think I could have done that because I would have been too embarrassed if I lost.
Right.
And what used to happen to me actually after Divine Design, during filming of Divine Design actually, so it was still airing new episodes, like we said, that doesn't pay. I wasn't able to just do that and pay my rent. So I still had to work on the side. I was working part-time at a fabric store in the city. And I can't tell you how many times people came in. There I am, standing at the cutting table with bolts of fabric, the little apron on with the scissors in there, little name tag, and people going, hey, aren't you that guy from Divine Design? And I'm like, yeah, hey, how you doing? And they're like, what are you doing here? Like, they're so shocked and almost ashamed of me for being there. And I just felt like, well, I have to eat and pay my rent, but they don't get it. One time, as I was taking Andrew, oh my God, it was the end of my shift, end of the day, 2 garbage bags, 1 in each hand, fully stuffed, walking through the store to throw the garbage out, and people recognize me. And there I am standing with the garbage in my hand, and the girl wanted my autograph. Dude.
The irony of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was so sweet, and she was the nicest, sweetest girl, and she was very nice, but in my head, I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on? So when I got wind that you were doing that, that's all those things went through my head of like, oh my God, what is he doing? I don't think I could have done it. But now I know you didn't think it through.
I didn't know. I rarely think things through. I just go and then hope for the best.
Right.
But I think honestly, Terry, that's kind of the reality of the world. Yeah, you know, if you were in Hollywood and that was your goal and all you did was go to the gym and tan and work on your brand and live on nothing because you can't afford to do anything, or you're couch surfing, nobody sees what happens behind the scenes for all of these people, right? And so you and I are hustlers, and I left Rooms That Rock and I went back into merchandising retail. Like I needed to work. I had bills to pay, and I would get recognized in the store. And of course, it's the same for you. The minute you're in an environment that works in the design world, so, you know, maybe not at the grocery store, but the minute you're in a fabric store or you're in a furniture store, people are like, yeah, that's the guy, right? But I had to do it. I mean, I think I've been very, very fortunate to have crafted kind of a place for myself in this world where I do a bit of TV and I do a bit of design and I do a bit of consulting and I do a bit of events and I do a bit of this, that, and the other thing. So when something's on the downswing, something else is on the up. And, you know, it's kind of the old adage, like putting all your eggs in one basket. I couldn't afford to do that. It wasn't a risk I was willing to take. But I mean, in regards to the Marilyn show, it wasn't, to my knowledge, it wasn't fixed, it wasn't rigged, I wasn't predestined, but I will tell you that very shortly after I started on the show, one of the internal producers was at her desk and, you know, they were like, oh, so we've got this guy that we're going to put in the competition, Andrew Pike. And she swung around in her desk and she was like, are you serious? And they were like, yeah, why? And they're like, because that looks terrible, because he's clearly going to win. And they were like, well, no, we don't know he's going to win. And she's like, have you seen anything he's done? You're going to pit him against 5 people who are complete unknowns. Well, you better rehearse with those people because this just looks awful optically. And that's why I said, I think I was put in the bottom to kind of like, let's break the cycle. Let's be very clear. We're not rigging this. Let's make sure he knows his place in the pecking order. And there it was. But I mean, yeah, it's a wild situation.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But luckily it worked out for you, and now you've got a cool gig. Did we talk about that? What is going on now with the whole pandemic and stuff? Are you guys still filming and airing stuff?
Everyone's shooting from home. There are the last I heard, the earliest plan to go back to studio was September, but that was prior to the rampant third wave. So I don't know if that's been delayed.
Well, now they're apparently now there's this new double variant that they've just confirmed cases in Canada yesterday.
I know. I saw another headline that said we are not in a third wave. We are in a completely different version of the pandemic. This is like now going sideways. I mean, I can't even, is it 4:45? Like, I just need a bottle of wine.
I've got some cocaine over here if you'd like. I don't, by the way, I'm just kidding.
I don't. Yeah.
Speaking of that, by the way, I don't know if you ever knew this, and when we were on Rooms That Rock, I was completely high the entire second season, every episode. But not on cocaine. I know I said cocaine, but on pain pills.
Yeah, I know about your struggles with addiction.
Right.
I didn't know that you were admittedly high for the second season. I have zero experience with drugs. Drugs have always scared me. I smoke pot once a year at the cottage, and then I go bananas, and everyone's like, we were having such a nice evening. Like,
Andrew ruined it again by getting high.
I'm like, oh my God, did you see the monkeys? And everyone's like, oh, Jesus. Do you know what I also remembered, Terry? One of my favorite all-time comebacks was you in an episode of Rooms That Rock. No, because I was dressing like in complete Euro trash clothing, like it was just whatever went, right?
Yeah.
And I felt great. And I remember walking into set one day, and you were like, you said, oh, are those jeans new? And I said, yeah, do you like them? You said, yes, they're nice. Did they not have them in your size?
What an asshole I am. My God, that wasn't fair of me. Sorry.
Oh my God, no. Terry, it is my favorite. It is literally, I've remembered that for 15 years. I always say to people who are like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you. I'm like, honey, you have to get up really early in the day and work really hard to offend me. Like, you need to try, and you probably won't even succeed. I'm like, fuck it. It means nothing.
I remember another time I may have said something to you regarding something you were wearing. I don't remember what it was, but I remember asking you, like, if it was a sweater, let's say, hey, did you ask your sister if you could borrow her sweater? Does she know? I remember saying something along those lines to you for sure.
No, I know exactly what it was, because I remember that too. It was like, oh, I like your sweater. Thanks. Does your mom know you borrowed it?
So I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you design-wise and get your answers from this. So right now, what is your top trend in interior design that you love?
Oh, my top trend in interior design that I love. I love that gold is back everywhere. I gotta say. I know it's been back for a while. I love that it's showing no sign of waning. I love the new soft brass finishes, all the living finishes that just kind of age over time and soften. I absolutely love that because I've always had that aesthetic, you know, like the big gilt mirrors or gold accents or brass chandeliers. And we went so cold and sterile for a while with all silver metals. And gold just makes me really happy. I mean, that speaks to me personally. And another trend that I just love is kind of the whole tactile and handmade trend. So, you know, perfectly imperfect things, that our pottery is unglazed, that it's, you know, it's slightly irregular, that our dishware isn't all perfect, that our cutlery is forged as opposed to just pressed. I love all of that stuff. Natural materials are really, really important to me.
But they're mixed in with perfection. So
of course,
the majority is pristine, and then here's this little unglazed pot that you were mentioning. It's beautiful. I love it too. I agree with you. I think, and I feel like all the colors are getting or warming up now. Even the grays are warming up. All the blues are warming up. The whites are warming up. We're getting away from the stark cold colors now. And yeah, I like all the gold hardware on the cabinetry and the gold, even the gold faucets. So I've seen a lot where even the gold shower heads and the gold, like, oh my God, it's beautiful. But I do feel that is something that will wear out very fast. That's a little bit too, like, I love it, but in 3 years, it'll be too much, I think.
Well, I hope not. I just did a giant master ensuite all in gold. No, but it is a beautiful, I forget what they call it, but it is a very, very soft, almost gray gold.
Right, okay.
I would almost call it's almost like an antique silver, like a very warm. So it's not very bright like this space. I mean, this master bathroom is like 14 by 18. I mean, it's absolutely huge. There's marble everywhere. And I just think those soft gold things are, but it flows through to the rest of the house. But I think you're right. I mean, it's going to be like anything. And thank God, Terry, because if trends didn't change, we wouldn't have jobs. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it literally is. I just did an install today for a client that has been waiting for months, just because of all of the delays. And we did all the walls were like a really warm ivory grass cloth. All the paint was a beige. It was all inset panels with grass cloth. So I've been doing so much gray and blue gray and all of that stuff for such a long time. And then she wanted this and I was happy to do it, but it's all those warm, rich, cozy ivories and yellows and gold metals and hits of chocolate brown. Like the rug has these big chocolate brown. I haven't bought chocolate brown in a rug in years, right? But it's back, and it was so cozy. When we left the room, we were just standing there thinking, my God, this is absolutely beautiful. And I think it's because we went through that blue gray with all the silver metals and the black. We've gone through all that industrial chic. We're working our way through, you know, modern farmhouse or whatever you want to call it, with the blonde wood floors and the white and the black. And I love that aesthetic too. I really, really do. But it's that warmth, and you can't replace it. You really can't. And when you get into those beiges and the ivories and the creams and the cafes, there's just something so cocooning about that.
That's a very good way of putting that. Somebody had said the other day to me, we were filming one of the other episodes of What's Your Problem? And she was saying, I get what you want. You want to walk into your house and have your house hug you. And I was like, oh my God, what an amazing way to word that. That was fantastic. A really cool way to say that. And yeah, even Benjamin Moore's new colors of the year are all warmer tones now. That's what's happening. And if you asked me that a year ago, I'd be like, oh my God. But for some reason, I'm even seeing it and going, oh shit, okay, I like that a lot now.
I think it's especially important at this point in time, having been locked in our homes for over a year. And I think we want that, our home to hug us. We want that cocoon. Excuse me.
I think that's exactly why the colors are going that way, is exactly for that reason, for
We
sure.
want it to feel nesting and safe and cozy and warm and supportive and all that stuff. And the cool tones just don't always do it.
No. Okay, so then what's a trend that you absolutely just want to see gone?
Normally I think I would say live edge anything. I can't stand it. But I have a client that I'm working with in Vancouver, and it's totally still out there. And ironically, I just did a custom dining table. Have you heard of river tables?
Oh yeah, where there's like a gap in the wood, and so they fill it with resin and stuff. Yes.
Exactly. So we just did a giant 10-foot by 4-foot river table out of 2 enormous planks of wood, and there's clear resin on all sides and in the middle, and it looks like they're floating in ice. I mean, it is spectacular. And so for me, that's like, okay, so this is live edge done differently. This is new. This is exciting. Like I love that tension of something that's so polished. But as for trends I wish would die, like I think I'm over pink. I think I'm just done with millennial pink and this whole, okay, so this is totally just dating me and everything that I do. I was out on the weekend just walking, because that's the only thing you can do. And someone was selling like flower arrangements, but they were all dried flower arrangements, and all those, those little pussy willows and and they look like the shit that we threw out 40 years ago, because they're just, I'm like, no, this boho, whatever, like, oh, I put this dried leaf in a vase. I'm like, not a thing. Totally not a thing. It was a thing 40 years ago. It's not a thing ever again. Like, it has to die. That whole, oh, but I bought these bulrushes for $18 each. I'm like, bitch, you got ripped off. Like that, no.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That and the like live, love, laugh stuff.
Yes, like gays don't have living rooms that say like live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
All right, we're gonna play the game Trend or Trash now.
Ew.
So I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna pull up a few things, and I want to get you're gonna tell me if you like it, so you're gonna trend it, or you don't like it, so you want to trash it.
Okay.
Antlers.
Oh my God, trend. It's basically my goddamn brand.
That's why I put that up. I know.
Ooh, I love it.
Oh, you want to know something? So here's my thing about Antlers. I think when you look at design through the ages, the things that are consistent are natural elements. Stone, leather, wool, fur, hide, antler, bone. They come and they go, they morph in and out. I mean, in Newfoundland, when I was growing up in the late 1800s, antlers were just something that you screwed on your shed as a joke. Like no one would put them in the house, because many people were hunters. Many people had them. They were just discarded. They became chic. But I think, which is when you look through time, they were rustic, they were mounted, we started doing them in resin, we did them in clear, we do them in gold, then we do them geometric, we do them in metals. I think it's just a great organic form that reps a lot of things, and they're not going anywhere.
I agree. I like them as well. I think it is a classic thing. I don't think I've ever seen any sort of, I've never seen them somewhere and went, oh God, why do you have antlers there? They always seem to elevate it, if anything.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas? Let's play a little game. Do you have any ideas how many racks of antlers I have in my house?
Well, I see that this is, like I said, this is why I brought up antlers, because I remember back in being at your home, and that was your thing. I know that's also in your logo.
Mm-hmm.
So even back then, I would have said you have more than 40 pairs of antlers in your home. So that was 20 years ago, or however many years ago that was. So I can't even, I'm going to say you have 74 pairs of antlers in your home.
You are really close. It is somewhere between 70 and 80 at this.
My God.
But again, yes, I have huge, oh, maybe you can see back there, there's a huge trug basket full of antlers. I have trays of antlers. I've got them mounted on walls. They're hung over pictures. They're lying on floors next to the bathtub. Like, there's just stuff everywhere. But yeah, and I have all the versions, like the natural, the metal, the exotics, the resin, the painted. So yes, there are
no.
in this house.
I think the reason I probably actually like Antlers is because of how much I've seen it at your place and how much you've admired it, and I've always liked it. I don't have a lot of it. I do though have a dining bench that's like 8 feet tall. It's in the red and black buffalo check plaid and like picnic gingham, and we have a big giant pair of moose antlers mounted right to the back of it, and they're from Newfoundland, ironically enough.
How did you ship them from Newfoundland, or?
My brother lives out there with his wife and 2 kids, and I think I needed a pair. I wanted a pair, and I think I needed them for something for a client, and I put a call out on Facebook, and his wife, my sister-in-law, messaged and said, "Hey, I know somebody who has a pair. Do you want them?" And the next thing you knew, they showed up in a big giant box, and I believe they probably were mounted, but they weren't mounted very well. So there was still, the original fur was still there, little bits of raw skin and rotted and stuff. Like, it was, yeah, it was kind of gross, but we remounted it on a leather plaque, and like, it's beautiful. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen of it. It turned out really nice. And I'm a big fan of Antlers as well.
I'll give you the brief history of Antlers in my life. When I went to Sheridan for school, so I moved from Newfoundland to Ontario, I was probably 18 years old, because we didn't have grade 13. So we kind of graduated a bit before you all did. Right. And that year for Christmas, my father sent a box, and in the box was this tiny little set of moose antlers mounted on a plaque, and he made the plaque, and he sent it as a joke because he'd been out walking a dog in the woods and had come across a dead baby moose that I could have been there for like ever, right? And anyway, my father went back up in the woods and cut the antlers off and made a little plaque and sent it to me, and he said, any good Newfoundlander is going to have a rack of moose antlers in their house. Ha 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 ha. I still have it. It hangs over my front door, and it kind of spawned and now it's one of those things. I rarely buy them anymore, but people give them to, it's my thing. So look, I found these antler salt and pepper shakers, or I found this antler bottle opener, and all of this stuff just comes into my life. So I have an immense amount of them, and I could never kill an animal.
Right.
Like it, I have a cat that rules this house. Whatever she wants, she gets. And if I have to sleep in the basement because she needs the other 3 floors, then that's fine. So, but I grew up in a community where lots of people do hunt, and I know it's very controversial, but to each their own.
Yeah. Yeah. When we were talking when I was talking with Rob, I equate it to whole big thing against gay marriage. Like, if you're against gay marriage, then don't say yes to a gay person that asks you to marry them. If I'm not into hunting, well, then I'm just not going to go hunting.
Yeah.
If I'm offended by that TV show, well, I'm not going to watch it again. Like, why do these people feel it necessary to scream and fucking yell at everybody else for what they're doing with their own lives that has no effect on you?
I know.
It drives me insane. How do you feel about Crystal Chandeliers?
Oh my God, I love them. It's another thing that I have everywhere.
I love it.
I probably have half a dozen or more of those in my house as well. I have 2 over my kitchen island.
I have to say, like, the traditional style, like this one here, I will never not love them. I feel like these are always, even in a super ultra modern space, you throw one of these in there, oh my God, dude, they're beautiful.
100%.
But these new versions, like this thing, no.
Right. Well, this is the question. So this goes to me, it's about the lingo too. I've said to clients, do you want a chandelier? And they will say, no, I hate them. And then I'll show them, like, oh, I really like that. But I'm kind of referring to a suspended fixture.
Right.
as opposed to, and they just see what their parents had or whatever. I love Crystal. I think in any application, the one that you just, with all the rings, I just took one of those, something very similar, out of my bathroom because
Okay, good.
I couldn't clean the goddamn thing. Like, it was such a nightmare to clean. At least with the other ones, you unhook all of the crystal loops and they all go in a bucket of water, and it's nice and easy to clean. But yeah, I mean, this other one on the other side, that Odeon, the tiered fringe, I'm tired of that look now.
Oh, this one over here? Yeah.
I've seen that so many times.
Yeah.
But I love a good classic traditional crystal chandelier for sure.
Okay, so I've just sent you an email.
There it is. Oh my God.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'd like to speak to the manager.
Oh my God.
So I'd like to know trend or trash on Cheryl's outfit. No.
Cheryl ain't the problem with this image, honey. It's so funny. At the time, I thought I was the height of trend. It is definitely trash.
Ew.
Here's a little known story. I mean, you probably know this. I don't know if you remember.
I'm sure I do. Go ahead.
I went to my hairdresser. I've been seeing my hairdresser for 25 years, and he was cutting my hair, and he said, I just did a full head of Cinderella hair extensions for a stripper, and there's some left. Do you want them? I'm like, absolutely. So that shock of hair in the front is all Cinderella hair extensions. My God, it was very good results, wasn't it?
It's so great, especially to look back. And I agree with you. At the time, it was like, oh, that's kind of awesome. I thought it, but looking back now, it looks like, what's her name? Kate plus 8.
Right.
I'd like to see the manager, please, right now.
Correct. Where's my Chardonnay?
Oh,
email. I know
Andrew.
Send this to people. There it is. Wow.
Trend or trash, Cheryl's eyeshadow.
Well, okay, again, as a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, I think it's very on trend.
I love it.
And I'm sure Cheryl would agree.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Isn't that fantastic, eh? So speaking of RuPaul's Drag Race, are you watching the finale tonight? Have you been watching this current season?
Yes, I have been, but is it current on Crave? Will it actually air tonight on Crave?
Apparently, yeah. Tonight's the night. Tonight's the finale. Okay,
then I guess I'm going to make a little note here on my pad. Make a little note.
All right. So, who is your pick to win season 13 of RuPaul's Drag Race?
Not Candy Muse.
Okay, wait. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram yet, but I interviewed a mill worker of ours, Rob, and I asked him as well, because his wife makes him watch it, but he turns out he loves it now. And I asked him the exact same question, and the first thing he said was, well, first, I just want to say, I do not like Candy Muse, and I've never liked Candy Muse.
So I couldn't believe that she has not, I can't believe she's in the final 4. And for me, it's very much about the fact that I feel she's a one-trick pony. And when you put her with the other girls, I'm like, your fashion isn't good, your makeup isn't good, you really can't perform. It's one thing over and over again. I don't know why they like her. I know she makes good television, right, because that kind of abrasive personality always does, but it's not the charming abrasive that Miss Vanjie is. No, you know, because
hello, Miss Vanjie.
Miss Vanjie. So I just don't get it. I love Rosé for the fact that she can sing live and she's like a performer and she actually gets that part.
The theater queen.
As a theater queen. And who
Right.
are the other two again? Remind me of the other two.
Gottmik and Simone.
I mean, so Gottmik, like her looks are flawless.
My God.
I mean, like mind blowing. That flasher outfit with the watches.
Yeah.
I was like, that is so clever. And so that stuff really appeals to me.
Her personality grew too. Like, I think she should have won the roast. She was the funniest. She was the most believable. Her personality just blew up during that. She should have won, not Candy.
I would agree. I would totally agree with that too, because again, Candy Muse, that was another incarnation of her one-trick pony.
Right.
So whatever. But Gottmik's looks are amazing, and the paint is incredible.
Yeah.
And the last one is
Simone.
Simone. Again, every time she comes out, she's flawless. Like, flawless. So, I think if I had to pick a winner, I'd honestly say Gottmik.
All right.
And you?
I keep bouncing back between Simone and Gottmik. For me, it's not Candy Muse and it's not Rosé. It's between Gottmik and Simone, 100%. This whole season, I've been Simone. But then Gottmik kept creeping in there and getting better and just letting loose and just kind of, I think I saw an interview of her on YouTube and she just got to a point where she finally just went, what the fuck? Let's just enjoy this and just have fun. And you can see it. You can, as soon as she did that, bam, wow.
Totally.
She came out of nowhere. So maybe there'll be another tie like they did on All Stars. All right. You got to go. Oh shit, we're late.
I got 5 minutes.
I want to ask you personal questions, okay? What's your favorite movie? If right now we end this conversation, you don't have to go run to appointments. You're able to throw on your pajamas, pour a glass of wine. What are you going to watch on TV? What's your go-to?
My 3 favorite movies are Shawshank Redemption, The Color Purple, and The Joy Luck Club.
Oh, all 3 good choices. Okay.
Movies.
This one I'm very excited to know the answer to. If we turned on your media player right now on your phone and you pushed play, what song would start?
Celine Dion.
Which one?
It's all coming back to me now.
You're the second person to say Celine Dion, by the way.
And what was the other song?
The What I Drove All Night. I know we don't. Let's see if we can squeeze this one in. You, as we have seen, and as I know, are an amazing storyteller. What is, if you feel comfortable telling us, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?
The most embarrassing thing. Oh my God, where do I start with that? There's a lot of those.
I know. Pick one of your favorites.
I was 10 minutes away from doing a design presentation at IDS West in Vancouver, and I was all dressed very nicely, and one of my colleagues said to me, do you mind grabbing that box of brochures? And I said, sure. And I leaned over to grab them, and there was a rip so loud, like it echoed, and I ripped the ass of my pants from arsehole to appetite. It was literally like from the crotch to the waistband.
Oh.
It was 10 minutes. I was like, she literally turned around. She was like, what was that? I'm like, oh my God. I had to,
no jacket or anything to cover it?
I took my suit jacket off. I tied it around my waist. I ran back to the hotel. I threw on another pair of pants. I came in like presentation starts at 2. I wheel in at 2:06 or something.
Oh my
like
God.
sweaty and completely flustered. I'm like, thanks, sorry I'm late. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell you all why I'm late. And then I just told that story. Talk about icebreaker.
I had a similar story actually happen to me way back in my early 20s. Do you remember the club RPM?
No.
Which then turned into the Government.
Okay. Yes, I remember Government. Yeah.
Before it was called Government, it used to be called RPM. And it was a big, giant nightclub. I went there one night with a group of friends in red leather pants and no underwear.
My life.
Okay. So I was up on a stage.
As one is.
Big dance floor. You can look up on the stage. I was dancing, having an amazing time, a few cocktails in me, turned around, my back was to the audience, did a whole woo. I was being an asshole at this point. I was joking with a friend where we would do this really dumb dance move where we would go, now reach down and slap the ground. And I would reach down, we'd slap the ground. and my pants ripped from crotch to belt loop as well.
Right.
No underwear. So everybody dancing behind me lower on the dance floor had a show. And I was in a nightclub with all my bits and bobs out for everybody to see.
You're coining the phrase of Little Britain, I'm winking at you, darling.
All right, Andrew, if you were not you, would you date yourself?
Oh, not a chance. No.
I love how honest and quick you were with that response.
Hard no too. It wouldn't even be like, well, maybe I could. No, I'm a nightmare. I'm an absolute nightmare. No, I'm very set in my ways. I'm very quick to judge. I'm very outspoken. I know my foibles. I'm not one of those people that's why I think it's hard to offend me when people say like, you're a dick. I'm like, and like, where do you want to go with this conversation? I've learned to soften a little bit in my old age and be patient, but I think part of it is I know what I will and will not tolerate anymore from other people, and so that can be challenging to others. I'm not saying I'm a horrible person or I'm miserable, but I'm work. I'm not easy.
That's what makes you, Andrew.
That's what makes me, baby.
Listen, baby, I swear to you, it was so amazing and so nice. And I really, really appreciate you doing this with me. It's been so long. It's been way too long. I want to send you a giant virtual hug. I wish you nothing but everything in life.
I'm so glad that you asked me to do this. It has been far too long. I hold you in a very special place in my heart from the times that we shared together, and always will. And if I don't get asked back, you're a fucker.
I will have you back for sure. For sure, as the East Coasters say.
For sure.
All right, I know you got to go. So I love you. Goodbye.
I love you dearly. Take care.
Who the fuck is that?